Hi there. Today we are going to review the steps of how to divide when there's a decimal in the dividend. So we're still going to be dividing by whole numbers like 2 or 7 or 6, but we have decimals in the numbers that are our dividends. So today we're going to remind ourselves of the division steps, and also we just need to remember one extra step today, which is to make sure that we slide the decimal up into our answer so that we continue to use the decimal when we are circling our final answer. So let's dive into the first problem. I recommend writing these down. At least one of them is a freebie for your work today, but I'm not going to tell you which one. You have to follow along, and hopefully at least one of these is going to help you on your assignment. So this first one, let's give a little real world context. So let's say that I have a piece of wood that is 34 16/100 of an inch long, and I want to divide it or cut it into 2 pieces. So we're going to divide by 2, and we will figure out how long each equal piece is going to measure. So the first thing I recommend is I like to do this first so that I don't forget it later. I'm going to bring my decimal straight up. You can even draw a little arrow if it's helpful. You want to make sure that you have the decimal ready for your answer. Now that I have my decimal ready, I'm going to ignore it when it comes to the math steps. So I'm going to just divide 3416 by 2 and put my digits up top in my answer. So how many 2's go into 3? I know that it goes in 1 time. 1 times 2 is 2, and 3 minus 2 is a remainder of 1. Let's bring down our next digit and continue to divide. Okay. So how many 2's go into 14 without going over? I know the answer is 7. 7 times 2 is exactly 14. So when I subtract, there is no remainder. Now remember, we're going to ignore our decimal because we already have it placed in the right spot. So I'm going to continue with my digits. I'm going to bring down this 1. How many 2's go into 1 without going over? I know the answer is nothing, but I have to still fill this seat. So I'm going to put a 0 up here. Okay. 0 times 2 is 0. There's still 1 left over because nothing actually happened. Let's bring down our 6. How many 2's go into 16? It's 8. It's exactly 16, and there are no leftovers. So because our math today has decimals, we should not be getting any remainders. And the reason we shouldn't get remainders is because remainders are extra pieces. Decimals are already another way to show those extra pieces. So we should not be getting remainders, and if you do start getting remainders today, it might mean that some of your math along the way has had an error in it. So I'm going to circle my final answer, 17 8/100. If you want to check either on paper or with a calculator, you can do your answer 17.08 times 2, and you would get our 34.16. Let's try this on another example. So again, I'm just going to walk us through the steps. I'm going to bring up my decimal point. Now, how many 7's go into 0? It's 0. I like to hold the spot just because we usually have a digit before we dive into a decimal point. So I like to just put the 0 to hold the spot when I'm working with decimals. Okay, next, I'm going to expand my thinking. How many 7's go into 2? 0 again. Okay, you can show your work here, or sometimes 6th graders like to skip this step because they know it would be 0 anyways. So I'm going to extend this even farther. I finally see some numbers that are going to have me dividing accurately. So how many 7's go into 22? I know this will work, and the answer is 3, because 3 times 7 is 21. I'm going to subtract and get 1. Bring down my 4, and we're going to complete our final step. 7 goes into 14 twice. It's 14 exactly. And so I'm done because there's no remainder. Again, feel free to check your work either on paper or with a calculator. 0.032 times 7 would get us back to our original number in our dividend. Quick reminders, don't forget to fill each spot somehow. So either marking a 0 that's a placeholder. We want to make sure that every seat is filled in our answer. Okay, our final example today is 73 2/1000 divided by 6. So I'm going to bring up my decimal before I forget. And now I can sort of ignore the decimal and just work with my digits. Okay, how many 6's go into 7? It goes in once. 6 times 1 is 6. When I subtract, I get a remainder of 1. I'm going to bring down 3. How many 6s go into 13? I know the answer is 2 times. 2 times 6 is 12. When I subtract, I got another remainder of 1. I'm going to bring down my next digit. This one's going to have a lot of digits. 6 goes into 10 once, and that answer is 6. When I subtract, I get a remainder of 4. I'm going to bring down the next 0. 6 goes into 46 times, because 6 times 6 is 36. My remainder is 4 again. And my last step, hopefully it works out, and it does. 6 goes into 42 7 times. The answer is 42 exactly. So there's no remainder. And now I can be done. Okay, if I were to check my math with multiplication, I would arrive back at that 73.002. So there's our quick little lesson today about how to divide when there's a decimal in the dividend. We're going to divide just like we've been doing. We just need to remember that we're keeping our numbers nice and lined up. We're filling every seat with a digit, and we're sliding up our decimal in our final answer. Good luck, do your best, and reach out to me if you have any questions.